It's not an enemy that's hurting Singapore's economy, it's a friend.
Because the word tariff to me is the most beautiful word in the entire dictionary, okay?
The United States just imposed a 10% tax on everything it imports, including goods from Singapore. No warning, no negotiation. And for a country that has supported the US for decades, this isn't just a policy change, it's something much bigger and much more personal. On 8th of April 2025, the US government announced a universal tariff, 10% on all imported goods. No exceptions, no exemptions, not even for long-time allies. The goal, according to them, is to bring jobs home, to reindustrialize the American economy. In Singapore, where trade is over 3 times its GDP, a disruption like this has real consequences. We're not talking about luxury goods here. These tariffs affect the core of what we export: electronics, pharmaceuticals, precision components, and even services linked to supply chains. And while the effect may not be felt overnight, the message is clear. The game is changing, and Singapore needs to respond. Prime Minister Lawrence Wong responded as soon as the news went public. His statement was simple but direct.
We are very disappointed by the US move, especially considering the deep and long-standing friendship between our two countries. These are not actions one does to a friend.
It was subtle in delivery but firm in meaning. He called out the lack of consultation, the abrupt nature of the decision, and the real risk of jobs and businesses being affected in Singapore. It wasn't just about tariffs, it was about trust, about how we treat our closest partners. And that's when the tone shifted, because this wasn't the usual, careful Singapore diplomacy. This was disappointment, out in the open. Singapore has been a loyal partner to the US for decades. We've offered military support, we've hosted troops. Singapore has signed strategic agreements with the US at times when few other countries in the region were willing to do so. We gave them military access. We stood by them when others didn't. So this isn't just about economics. It's about loyalty. And what happens when loyalty is no longer mutual? And that's why this moment matters. Because it's not just about what happened. It's about what it means that the rules we trusted might be breaking. Singapore's trade-driven sectors are already feeling the pressure. Companies in logistics, semiconductors, and biomedical exports are recalculating costs, renegotiating contracts. And for workers, it's the uncertainty. Do they still have a future in anything export-related? Or is it time to pivot, retrain, and reposition? This is where the anxiety begins. Not with layoffs, but with silence, with deals that don't close, with clients who don't call back. In response, PM Wong has announced a new economic task force led by Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim Yong. Their job, 3 key priorities. 1. Help affected businesses adapt fast. 2. Support workers in at-risk sectors, especially those tied to US exports. 3. Assess how Singapore positions itself globally. It's calm, it's structured, and it's familiar. Because just a few years ago, Lawrence Wong co-led the COVID task force that kept this country functioning during a global health crisis. Outside Singapore, people are taking notice. People from Europe, the US, and across Asia have praised PM Wong's response. Calm, composed, and quietly firm. In a world where leaders often perform for cameras, his direct approach stood out. But what's the bigger trend behind all this? It's protectionism. Countries are blocking exports, hoarding raw materials, tightening control over energy. Protectionism is back. It's no longer about competition, it's about survival. And smaller economies like Singapore, open, efficient, exposed, feel it first. America imports way more than it exports. In other words, the US buys more stuff than it sells. For decades, that trade deficit, as they call it, has been growing. And a large chunk of it is with China. Why? Because China is simply more efficient at manufacturing. In many cases, ideas are born in the United States but built in China. The US knows this, but it also knows that overdependence comes with risks, not just economic but strategic. Tariffs are one of the ways the US is trying to shift the equation, to reduce reliance on overseas manufacturing and bring more production back home. The goal? to balance the trade ledger, support local jobs, build a little more self-sufficiency. Whether it works or not is still up for debate, but the intent is clear. America wants to rebalance, even if it means rewiring decades of global trade. America says tariffs are about fixing trade deficit, but in this case it doesn't quite add up. In 2024, Singapore exported about $43.2 billion worth of goods to the United States, but the US exported even more to us, $46 billion. That's a $2.8 billion trade surplus in America's favor. This is official data published by the United States Trade Representative. These are numbers from the US government itself. We bought more from them than they did from us. And yet, it's our goods facing the tariff, so what exactly are we being penalized for? Singapore didn't retaliate. We formed a task force, assessed the impact, and start negotiations. Singapore doesn't make decisions based on how one person feels. The response is always driven by data, not drama. Every move is built on analysis, data modeling, and measurable impact. When tariffs shift, it's not just a headline, it trickles down. Organizations like MTI and Enterprise Singapore have already put up support framework in place. Trade surplus, tariff. Trade deficit, also tariff. At this point, I'm not sure the numbers even matter. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.